solve sine of x plus cosine of x equals 1, where 0 less than or equal to x is less than 2 pi. In other words, in one revolution around the unit circle, we want to know when this is true. Now, looking at this, it's pretty tricky because I don't see any factorings that are going to happen here. And I don't really know of any identities that I'm going to be able to do because I don't have a sum to difference identity that has a sine plus a cosine. So I'm going to have to be a little bit more creative. And what we're going to do here is we're going to, one useful thing is, of course, being able to use identities. One identity that this kind of looks like is sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x equals 1. So if I could use that identity, that would be really useful. So to do that, we would need a sine squared and a cosine squared. And in order to get that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just square both sides of this equation. So sine of x plus cosine of x squared is equal to 1 squared. Okay. Now, I've squared both sides of the equation, which is actually something that can introduce what we call extraneous solutions. Solutions that are not actually solutions to the original equation. So just make sure that at the end of the problem, you check your answers. All right, but now that I'm squaring this, we're actually going to work this out. I'm going to write this out as the two things that it is. So sine x plus cosine x times sine x plus cosine x. And then distribute. So sine of x times sine of x is sine squared of x. Plus, I've got sine of x times cosine of x. And then another sine of x times cosine of x. There's two of them. And then plus cosine times cosine, which is cosine squared, equals 1. All right, well now, look, this and this, that's sine squared plus cosine squared, which is equal to 1. So I get 2 sine of x, cosine of x, plus 1 equals 1. Now, if you subtract 1 from both sides, we get 2 sine of x, cosine of x is equal to 0. Well, this is really nice because this is an equation that is, it is already in a factored form. It's something times something. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2 real quick just to make it a little bit cleaner. And so now sine of x times cosine x equals 0. So really, we are just looking for when the sine of x is equal to 0 or where the cosine of x is equal to 0. Well, we know that the sine of x is equal to 0 at 0 and at pi. Those are the only places in this given range. And then here cosine of x is 0 when x is pi over 2 or 3 pi over 2. All right, so I have 4 different solutions here. But I mentioned at the beginning that when I squared it, when you square, you can actually introduce extraneous solutions, things that are not actually solutions, because if the left side is a -1, -1 squared is still equal to +1 squared. And so that's where we might get some extra answers. So what we need to do is go in and just check these 4 places and see if sine plus cosine is actually equal to 1 of these. So sine of 0 plus cosine of 0 is equal to 0 plus 1, which is equal to 1. That works. Sine of pi plus cosine of pi is 0 plus -1, which equals -1. That does not equal 1, so that does not work. Pi is not actually a solution. Okay, then pi over 2, sine of pi over 2 plus cosine of pi over 2. Well, that's 1 plus 0, which equals 1. That works. And then finally 3 pi over 2. Sine of 3 pi over 2 plus cosine of 3 pi over 2. Sine of 3 pi over 2 is -1 plus cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0. That's equal to -1, which is not equal to 1, so that doesn't work either. So our solutions then are x equals 0 and x equals pi over 2.